Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lauren Dubritz, and I am the PR and Events Manager at Jewelers of America. I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest episode of My Next Question, which is National Jeweler and Jewelers of America's co-branded webinar series. This month's webinar is sponsored by the Gemological Institute of America. Today, you have a two-for-one special. You have two Laurens today. I'm joined by my co-host, Lauren McLemore of National Jeweler, and we will be speaking on the top tips for the social media etiquette. Before we get the webinar started, I just wanted to let attendees know that if you guys have any questions, you can drop it right into the Zoom chat, and we'll be back on at the end of the discussion to go through those questions. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be available later on this week on National Jeweler's website. So now I'll hand it over to Lauren and we'll get the discussion started. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We have a fantastic panel here today. Thank you to the three of you for joining us. Before we get started, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, tell us who you work for, what you do, and you're all involved in social media, so tell us which platforms you work on. Shay, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Shay Curry. I'm the founder and CEO of Catch Social. We're here in Los Angeles. We are a social media marketing agency, predominantly working with jewelers, jewelry manufacturers, and jewelry retailers. We work on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter X, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, pretty much all of them. Facebook.
Oh, Joseph, what about you?
I am fourth generation at my family's business. I do all aspects of marketing and digital marketing. The platforms that we tend to use the most are TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, although we have a pretty solid Pinterest account as well.
And Kate, what about you?
I'm the social media specialist and photographer at Emily Chelsea Jewelry, located in Philadelphia. We are on pretty much every platform except for X. And we like to take just a very authentic approach while making jewelry accessible but still feel high end. So it's definitely a challenge with social media. So
Yeah, thanks so much for you guys all being here. I'm really excited to dive into this topic of social media etiquette. It's a little bit niche. So I just want to clarify that, while we're going to be discussing some content and some strategy, we're going to be doing it through the lens of being respectful and responsible and appropriate online, and practicing thoughtful behavior, especially as a person behind a brand name, and why that even matters and if it even matters. So I'd like to just start with, and I'll throw these questions out. Anyone can answer anytime, popcorn style. And I know other Lauren does some social for JA, so feel free to give your perspective too.
Okay.
Let's just start with a blanket question. What does good etiquette mean on social media? We know what that means in like the real world of being polite and using your manners, and maybe you think of like cutlery at a restaurant. But what does good etiquette look like online? What does that mean?
I mean, I I think part of good etiquette is to treat comments like customer service, how you would want to treat your customer if they were walking in your store. I'm assuming we're mostly talking to jewelry retailers here, but even for jewelry manufacturers who have a social media presence and you have a client that's coming into your office to speak to you, you want to treat social media exactly like you would treat them if you saw them in person. That's the simple answer.
yeah, I think that mostly it can be a challenge because you want to be professional without being robotic. And so with that, it's like about consistency, respect, and tone. You really want to remember those three things. pretty much at all times, like when responding.
I place a big emphasis on kindness whenever I interact with people or talk to people. That said, I also try hard to come across as an individual as opposed to a brand. I'm not necessarily a believer in the overly PR centric word choice. People don't want to, people understand that they're speaking to a person and they understand that a person is behind the account. And I think it's important to take that perspective as opposed to pretending that your brand is some sentient being that represents itself. It's important to be human and to just be kind and be someone that folks want to hang out with and someone that folks like.
I completely agree with Joseph there. I call it the human responses, not those robotic AI responses. Be human. So 100% agree, Joseph, there.
Yeah, being a small business, like one of the things my boss always talks about is like feeling seen, not just sold to. And so that's like a big opportunity you have, especially in the jewelry world, because like so many of these like purchases are based on connections sometimes, like whether it be commitment or milestone. So yeah, it's you can really have the opportunity to make people feel seen, which really brings people back to you over and over again.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's really about finding a balance between all these things. And I know we're all so familiar with those robotic AI kind of responses. You can tell, right? Like, you
Mhm.
know. So you all kind of mentioned several different things, consistency, customer service, respect. And I want to just get really niche into those different topics and get really pointed. So let's start with customer service. We're talking about being in the comments. There's if you have a decent following, you know that that comment section can get it can get colorful, right? So let's talk about how we might respond to some of these comments with grace, with respect. So how would a brand handle a price inquiry in a public comment? A retailer, a designer?
Well, what I will typically do is reach out to them via direct message and then just respond underneath that everything is listed on our website if you search by the SKU, but I just DM'd you a link to the product. And that way you send it to them directly, and it also kind of answers that question for everybody else. So they know that if they want to find this specific product, they just type in the SKU on our website and they can pull it up immediately like that. So that answers the question for every other piece they may have interest in.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of customer service, the number one thing is to acknowledge quickly. You really need to respond 12 to 24 hours or less if you can. It just depends on you guys are internally social media people, but I work with a lot of retailers who don't have the luxury of having that. And I'm like, you're just throwing, money off the table when you don't respond to people quickly. So it really is important to respond like 12, 24 hours max. Otherwise, you're going to lose them to your competitor.
Hmm. Okay, so response time 12 to 24 hours.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we usually try to answer everything with transparency. Especially we specialize in like inclusive selling, and so with that, sometimes like we tend to get very a colorful collection of comments. And we just always try to assume that everybody is positive and like everybody just, it's from a positive place and they want to feel seen and they want to feel heard. And then if it is something where it's like, okay, like it's questioning our sourcing or a question where it's like, well, why is that price this way? Or why am I seeing something this way? We usually like to answer it pretty publicly and just be like, that's a great question, and here's how we handle it and why. Because we figure like the best way is to just always be honest and be ourselves. And if we do that across the board, like people, that usually really resonates, especially with our audience.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned negative comments because that was where I was going to go next. It's nearly inevitable. There's always going to be some, whether it's a real person or a bot. I think sometimes you're maybe faced with the question of, do we hide the comment? Do we respond? Do we delete it? Is there a right answer?
So I will say if the comment is not derogatory, we don't hide it. I will say we did have a video within the last 2 years where my boss was talking about some of the climate, like politically, that was going on, and the comments were pretty intense. But I will say, it wound up being like 5,000 comments, but like 30,000 likes. And so I like to say that, like, sometimes the wrong comments help the right people find you. So that was pretty impactful to see, like, even though there was so much negativity, it brought so many people to us. And so that was, there is no right or wrong answer, but I would say you don't want anything on your page that somebody would see and be like, oh my God, like that affects me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such, Kate, you brought up, I see it with a lot of accounts that we manage. And I saw something the other day quickly, thank goodness, on an account that wasn't a jewelry brand, but a children's book about kindness. And I could not believe a profanity word was used in a situation like that. That is when you definitely want to, I say, hide the comment. And I say hide the comment because the person that wrote it can't see that you hid it. But your people that are following you know that well, they won't see it, so that you're not instigating perhaps a troll or a crazy person, because they do exist out there. Um, but to Kate's point about, you guys got 30,000 likes on that post. That was one of those instances where, you want to make sure that you don't delete that post, that you keep it, and maybe just keep an eye out and monitor the really offensive comments that, again, those of us who are managing a social platform can hide, and that person doesn't see that we did it. And then in terms of, like, let's say, and I know, and I'm, perhaps I'll let Joseph and Kate like speak on this, but a customer comes and we see this where, a prong got loose, or, a micro pave fell out, or something, and they're upset. You definitely want to acknowledge without being defensive. I think that is like really important, and show that you're solution driven and how you're going to, you apologize. I'm so sorry that happened. Here's what we can do to help you fix that. And I think that is a great opportunity for people to see how you handle things like that happen.
Yeah, I think what you said there, we are really like big across our business with, it's not enough to just say we messed up. Like we need to show like action, whether that's through education or whether that's through doing something new in our processes. Like what are we doing to remedy the situation? Because words in this world are just unfortunately not enough anymore.
I'd like to add something on to kind of what both of y'all said. The most viral video that we ever posted, it ended up getting about, I think, 12.2 million views on Instagram. The reason that it got so many views is because people were trolling me in the comments, because I referred to a diamond as being 100 years old when I was suggesting it was cut 100 years ago. So I had people flooding the comments talking about how I don't know anything, diamonds are millions of years old. A lot of people were trolling me, but the level of trolling encouraged other people to open the comments, and there were an equal number of people defending me in the comments. And for better or for worse, we ended up getting probably 3 to 5 thousand new followers just from that one post. And
Yeah, all those comments, good or bad, up you in the algorithm. So, we love to see that as an agency. We're like, yeah, like just keep talking, people, just keep talking.
Yeah.
Great. Sometimes all engagement is good engagement, right?
I like to troll people back sometimes. Like if somebody is just like being mean for no reason. Like just the other day, someone was making a comment about an inclusion on a ring that we posted, and I made the comment like, it's wild how many folks stick their nose up at a $30,000 stone.
Yeah.
Which, is that a little bit trolly? Possibly, but it's honest, still reasonably kind, and I'm defending our brand and our product in what I would consider a respectful way. That people who read that comment are going to be more likely to like chuckle, laugh, side with us. And that's how you build fans, because people really become your fans when they like see how you behave. If you're like, oh, that's a little bit different than what a normal store would do, I kind of like that. And that's what separates you from the thousands of other jewelers that are on the platform posting the same type of thing. That's just how, one of the ways I like to differentiate our accounts.
I think that that is like really like honest and true. Like one thing about like how I said before, your content will help the right people find you. And like if you have that style of humor, there's going to be people that resonates with. Like our approach is not really as direct. We kind of like our humor, warmth, and like we try not to joke at anybody else's expense but our own. But I could see from interactions I've had myself, like there's definitely a fans of that. As you said, there's definitely like no approach is the correct, like is the direct, correct or right way. You can find like you can create your own path basically. There's going to be an audience out there for you. It's just finding who that is.
Yeah, sometimes it's a risk, right? Like to go maybe a little more humorous than your brand would normally go. And like we talked about earlier, the balance of like staying within your brand tone, but maybe pushing it here or pushing it there. And that kind of leads me into, I'd like to ask you, Shay, you before we started the call, we were talking about how you have you kind of tell people to take a pause, a 3 second pause or a 5 second pause.
Yes. Oh, I think did Lauren freeze?
There's only so many hours in a day, right? Like we can't humorously respond to every comment. So how maybe do you differentiate which ones are worth the time to respond to? Maybe with a bit of sly humor or something like that.
Well, I think it's important to try to respond to every comment. Even if it's just like liking the comment. If someone just puts hearts on a comment, then you may not necessarily need to respond. But I do think it's important to acknowledge because that continues the engagement. In terms of that 3 second pause before replying, I usually think about that in terms of perhaps a frustrated customer, and maybe this is a situation where you're not in the wrong, and maybe they are, or they're bringing up a situation that may have happened in your store, that now is playing itself out sadly on your social media. And how do you handle that? um, and look, we all have our moments where we get like, and we want to just respond right away with, no, but you did this when you walked in the store, and this is why this whole situation went down. But like, you really need to like step back, take a breath, and maybe that is a situation where, you take 3 seconds, or maybe you need to take 30 minutes, and think about, would I say this in a professional email? So if you think that you could let this live forever, you know, in a professional email, you know, with a social media post, you can down the road go down and delete that comment that you put. And maybe that person didn't take a screenshot and it doesn't live forever. But once you hit the send button on an email, that I see Kate shaking her head. That lives in eternity. So just that's what I mean about that 3-second rule. And then in terms of just overall responding, I just really think it's so important to engage. I also just want to bring up something really quickly. And first of all, I just want to say, as an agency, I want to say kudos to both Kate and Joseph. You guys are crushing it on social media. I went and did my own little audit, so amazing. But you know, there are a lot of brands out there that will just post and ghost and think that, oh, if I just post, I don't need to do anything else. And I think it's really important that when people are liking and responding on your social media, that you pop into their social media accounts and give them some love back. That reciprocity is so important in building that sense of community. And I can see that both of you guys are doing that. So kudos.
Yeah, when I first started out on social media, something that I learned, and it really helps if you want to see your profile grow from interactions, is every single day that you're in the office, liking 10 new posts from 10 new accounts, commenting on 10 new posts from 10 new accounts, even if they're out of like your niche, and then also following 10 new accounts. Like, I know that that sounds crazy sometimes, but it really does go a long way, and you will like see Instagram rewards you for interacting.
100%. Kate, if you ever want to come work for me, literally you're like every strategy call I have with people. You got it down, girl.
Thanks, thanks.
Don't tell Emily that.
Yeah, she's got me locked in with the photography. I like
I know.
the artistry is one thing I can't give up.
I'm really glad that you guys mentioned engagement and interaction because that is something where it does seem necessary to grow your own profile to engage with other profiles. But in what ways, what are maybe some boundaries for interacting with other profiles? Like, are we being personal with people we know personally as the person behind the brand? Are we just commenting hearts? Is it poor etiquette to maybe promote something of your own on someone else's post? Like, let's maybe talk about some boundaries and how we engage with other profiles and other posts.
I would say that it is definitely poor etiquette to promote something of yours on somebody else's post. I do form personal relationships with other brands. Um, been doing social media, Instagram for 10 years here now, probably. So a lot of the bigger accounts I've known for a very long time, like we all kind of started around the same time, and like it's very common for me to have personal conversations with them. And a lot of times, particularly on TikTok, I don't really have a personal TikTok account, so I kind of use Levy's as my own personal TikTok account a lot.
Like, digital respect is a two-way street. So it's like if we want to receive that respect, we need to give that respect. And so whether that's with crediting or, you know, even with clients, it's as simple as remembering someone who always comments, or a sweet engagement story. Like, those things really add up and build like trust and loyalty over time, and people don't forget it.
I want to add one thing to that. And maybe I know I saw Emily in the comments. She's here. But don't worry, I'm not going to poach her. I'm here in LA. We're on the opposite sides. But you got a good one working for you. Uh, you know, Emily's brand is Emily, so I'm not sure. So I'm actually part of this as a question and then also as a statement. When we're working with other brands, we're always mindful when we're giving that love to other accounts that we always say we as if, we and not I am. So it's very important in terms of like, you know, that differentiation so people understand that it's not some, maybe they might think if it's a brand and then there's an I saying this, they're like, but wait a minute, I thought that they, were a company, a brand. But I'm very curious because Emily, your brand is I know she's in the comments somewhere, but Kate, like, how do you guys handle that? Is it a do you make it all encompassing with your entire team in terms of how you reach out?
So when we first started out, it was actually a very small team. It was Emily, and then it was just Emily and I. And so for a while, when we were saying it was really easy for I to just be kind of like Emily and me. Like it was like the social media, like Joseph had said before, it kind of was essentially like a person that we shared. So now that we've grown so much, and we actually had brought on another person onto the social media team recently, but like as we started to grow so much, it started to needing to be more of a we. And the accomplishments weren't just like singular accomplishments anymore. These are team wins. And we do, everybody who's coming in isn't just getting Emily anymore. They're getting a whole team of people. So we've started kind of slowly transitioning and like our language and things to talking about it more as Emily Chelsea Jewelry, the brand, versus Emily Chelsea, the person. So it can be confusing at times. Sometimes people still think that they're getting Emily, but like we try to be as transparent as possible. And we always like start with like, oh, I'm Kate from Emily's team. Like introduce yourself right away. Like you want to create that like relationship. And it's also going to be really important for you as the team member to remember this person or create notes that help you remember this person long term.
Yeah, I was headed in that direction. So you're right on point of I was gonna ask how what are some ways that you practice consistency when you have multiple people managing one account, especially if it is an eponymous name, a brand that's named after a person who's neither of you.
So I can go first with that. One of the things that we do as a team with so many people sometimes being in the DMs, and sometimes we even have suppliers who still reach us there. What we like to do is we really focus on the unread feature. So we do use unread very frequently. If something's unread, we're treating it as like very important because it needs to be taken care of. And also we really work to like assign each other like, okay, like suppliers conversations that is taken up with this department. Any like sort of like inquiry, we now have a system where we reach out to sales and have a follow-up with our sales team. Obviously, with a small team, this is like pretty easy because we all communicate. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to be in like a bigger like team where we're not all in the same office. But right now, we have like a pretty tight team, which really helps us to have a good system. I think that if we didn't have like such, like I said, like consistency and structure across the board, and especially with just like our tone, like anybody could grab the phone and you could think it was me, you could get potentially our salesperson Sam or Emily, and you would never like if we didn't say who it was, you would not be able to tell.
Yeah, it's going, and continuing this conversation with consistent tone. For us as an agency, when we're working with retailers who don't necessarily have an internal social team, it's really important for us to, if they don't already come with a brand guideline, then we will create that for them, which is, very specific examples of tone and things language that you can say, things that you shouldn't say, and being very intentional about that specific brand's voice. And I think, for all brands, it's really important to have we call it a brand Bible, but because no matter who is coming and going on your team, that brand guideline will remain consistent to be handed over to anyone else that comes through the door that potentially is handling social.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one thing I'd like to ask Joseph specifically, as a fourth generation jeweler, that's a long reputation to uphold. And I'm sure that you, in the whole time that your jewelry business, your family's business has been around, only a fraction of that have you been online. And so how do you go about, maintaining this long storied reputation while also, you know, constructing this brand tone, this brand voice, and something that gets through to people on social media?
Well, being fourth generation and being a part of the family does allow me an opportunity to take a more personal approach with that. A lot of a lot of the people that I would interact with know me, and they know I'm the one behind the account. They know my uncles are the managers of the store, that my great grandfather started the store. Um, on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, a lot of times I will post pictures of my great grandfather or his brother who passed away fighting in World War One. My great grandfather who founded the store fought in World War One. Um, Focusing on the history of the store, we just recently redid the neon lighting on our sign out front that nobody knows exactly how old it is, but probably sometime in the 1930s, very early 40s. But that is really how we do that, is by being personal and just being genuine and straightforward and very proud of where we came from.
I love that, Joseph. You just touched on one of my favorite things when I'm working on social strategy or branding strategy. I always, the first thing I ask is, how long has this business been around? Is it multi-generational? Because that heritage that you're speaking about is so profoundly important to continue to speak upon on social media. It's not, about pushing it out there every day, but to your point, being very intentional in these moments, on Veterans Day. My family wasn't in the jewelry industry, but my grandfather fought in World War II, and like those kind of things really resonate for all of us who have family members, who fought, and that heritage and that legacy is so important to continue to speak that message. It also builds brand trust. And it's authentic, and it's who you are. It's who you and your family are at its core.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the idea of posting on occasion and using that as a way to resonate with people. Speaking of holidays, but kind of maybe hand in hand with that is also social issues. Specifically, I know Emily Chelsea Jewelry, your brand is really built on all different types of love and commitment jewelry, and maybe not using the word bridal. And that's something you speak openly about online as much as selling the actual jewelry. So anyone can take this question, but I'm curious what kind of audit questions a brand might need to ask themselves of like, where's an appropriate place for me to speak out? Do I need to speak out on every political issue or social issue or current event? Like, what kind of questions are good to ask yourself before doing something like that?
So we actually faced this year with Emily, or in this past year with Emily. Emily likes to obviously we are very outspoken, especially when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights. We always have been, and it's ingrained in our brand, like inclusivity. Jewelry is not for jewelry's for everyone, and love is for everyone. So we really, have taken that to heart. But with that being said, we have really big hearts. So we will tend to want to, champion so many things. And like we're all so different, our team within the business. Like we would be championing like such a large array of different issues. So what we have done is like we've tried to stay true to our values with the business account. Like we support many different charities with our charitable givings every year, but we have chosen like when we speak out using the social account, we try to stay in our lane and like speak on our values and what pertains to us. And Emily actually has an account now that everyone can follow. It is her business owner account, and there she speaks on everything that everything else that we care about really so much. But it's just when it comes to our account, we would, we want you people to be able to find us and find what they want, not just a ton of things that don't always pertain.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to, brand authenticity, right? Being authentic to who you are. Um, you know, again, I know I keep bringing it back to when we work with brands, but it's like true because I get so much and so many people don't know who they are. They haven't found their brand voice yet. And I think once you're very clear and you define that, and again, it's really, mapping that roadmap out and defining those brand pillars. Once you've defined those brand pillars, then you know what it is that you're going to speak upon or the issues that are going to be important for you to talk about on social media. So again, as long as you're being true and authentic to who you are, that's really all that matters because people are really buying into authenticity, and especially we know the buying power of the younger generation. Um, they want they want to work with authentic brands, period. Whatever your brand voice is, they want to work with people who are true to themselves.
Love that. Um, so I want to shift into a different type of posting. So all of your profiles have a variety of things, right? The things you sell, your values, the things you believe in, your heritage, your history. It's kind of a conglomerate of different things. And so I kind of want to talk about what are some ways that, some questions you ask yourself, some ways that you determine kind of what that pool of things looks like, whether it's a lot of behind the scenes content or whether that's a lot of personal content. How do you maybe determine what makes up your conglomerate of posts?
I can start out with that one. The emphasis that I've placed on social media since the very beginning is nobody wants to be sold to. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to entertain people. And if you entertain people enough, then they will like you. They will watch your videos every day. They will share it. Over time, they will start knocking down your door to buy from you. So that makes it their decision as opposed to, I think too many jewelry stores, the biggest problem they have on social media is they try way too hard to sell things. And they don't think about why people are on Instagram. People don't get on Instagram because they want to buy a necklace. People get on Instagram because they're bored, they want to doom scroll, they want to see what their friends are saying. You just have to become a part of that and entertain them. And in that way, you're essentially like becoming one of their friends, or like you're playing the role of a TV show that they like, as opposed to just being the store down the street.
Amen, Joseph, to that. I call it the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is 80% relatable, educational, storytelling content. 20% is like a new product launch, right? A promo, a sale that you've got going on. Because if every post is about selling, you look desperate. And at the end of the day, confidence sells.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think that when it comes to social, you want to blend who you are in, like, it has to have personality. It can't read as robotic. If it reads as robotic, people are just going to scroll right past you. You're going to get lost in the scroll.
So it's perhaps not good etiquette to overly product promote and not do anything else and just push product, versus trying to find the connection factor with people, your followers.
Yeah, I think it goes back into like those brand pillars. So I like to tell brands if they could come up with 3 to 5 brand pillars, and they can always adjust those down the road. But for example, Joseph brought up one, heritage. That's a brand pillar. So you're peppering in the heritage of your family's legacy. Um, BTS behind the scenes content. People love to see how things are made, right? You're showing them that you're not just buying product and sticking it in the store. You're actually creating pieces, educational content. We can't always assume that we understand all the ins and outs of the jewelry industry, but people do like to be educated, whether it's, understanding lab versus natural or colored gemstones and the different types of, metals and different shapes of, stones. And then once you like think about these different types of brand pillars, then it's easy to create the content to then weave it in this kind of seamless way that doesn't seem like you're pushing all this or that. And then obviously, you have a new product launch or it's some really incredible bespoke piece that you made for a customer that your customer allows you to, shoot a picture of and put on social. But there you are promoting, these incredible things that you can create from your imagination.
And I think if there's like two places, like if you feel like you're really stuck and you're like, I don't know where to start with my content, I think like two things that I like to do. The first thing is I audit what we've done already. And I'm like, okay, what do we do really well and what do people really like? And I'm like, okay, how can we replicate this maybe in a new, fresh way? And that's somewhere I start. And then the other big one is our why. Like, why do we do what we do here at Emily Chelsea Jewelry? And like, even from hearing Joseph, like, he has family, like the family history side of things. Like, that is very interesting and captivating to a lot of people. For us, it's sometimes we're kind of nerdy about in like sourcing and things like that. Other times it's like how strong we are about inclusivity. And, it really is just like if you proceed with your why, you're going to have content that resonates.
Yeah, that's great. These are all exceptional answers. We have a couple questions that have come in the Q&A and some that were submitted ahead of time, but I'm gonna hand it to Lauren for now, and then we'll get back to those in just a second.
Yes, thank you guys, everybody. Thanks so much for that discussion. Once again, I just wanted to thank our sponsor, Gemological Institute of America. As a reminder, if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat right now. We'll compile those answers and we'll go through them shortly. First, I just wanted to say a quick word from GIA. This webinar is brought to you by GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, protecting consumers and supporting the global gem and jewelry trade since 1931 through research, education, and laboratory services. All right, we are going to get started now with our questions, and we had a few that were submitted beforehand as well. So somebody wants to know, they're asking, they know the importance of sharing a personal vision and their authenticity, but how do they do that without risking TMI, giving out too much information for security purposes, given the field that we're in?
I mean, I just
That's difficult.
go ahead, Joseph.
That is difficult. One of the first conferences that I ever went to, there was a security person who essentially he said that you should not post your most expensive things on social media because that makes you a target. I disagreed with that because literally a week or two before that, I posted a $30,000 ring that was sold the very next day. So everything is going to have some level of risk. Um, I would not post that you are going on vacations. If you are doing some stuff from trade shows, be careful in how you do that, I would say. Yes, you can still say that you are at this trade show. Maybe that's something that you do more in stories as opposed to making a post about it, but um, it depends on your business and the way that your business is structured and what type of risk you're comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, there is going to be risk involved in absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Joseph. I mean, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with, but to your point, there's you know, every there's risk for all of us. You know, so you know, I certainly if you're the brand owner and you're in charge of your social media, I wouldn't like do that location tag on Instagram. Like, you know, maybe you don't let people know that you're, you know, showing up at a restaurant with your Rolex on, you know, by pinning that location. So, and I don't, you know, jewelers don't really do that, but I'm just saying using that as an example.
For security purposes with us, obviously we have a storefront, so we show everything that's available in the store. And obviously most things are kept at the store or within the building. So with that being said, how we try to, you know, be secure is we don't ever show where the jewelry is kept. We don't show how it's kept. And in terms of like any sort of receiving and things, we're not showing how that is done at all either. When you see unboxings and things like that, a lot of the times with us, it's staged. So if you want to do something, don't be scared to stage it. I think is like, you know, the way to go. Security always should come first.
Yeah, I actually just happened to attend an event for the Georgia Jewelers Association, and they had an FBI agent speaking about all this local crime in the area. And I had just spoken for an hour about posting all the behind the scenes on social media, and you should do everything. And they were kind of like, oh, well, this is how people break into your store right after. But he made a great point of being, you know, you can do all this behind the scenes stuff, but make sure that even in the background, even in the far background, that you can't see a safe, you can't see an alarm system where they'd be able to see what brand of alarm system it is or anything that would give it away. And it's not something that you would probably think about in the forefront, but maybe if it's just in the background, just some things to keep in mind.
Also, creating an environment, I would say too, is like, you know, with that being said, I do have to admit I am in the environment now. You would never like know this is part of the jewelry store. So that is also really helpful if you need to create a space like that. So that way you can get some of this content, you should do that.
Yeah, great point. Are there any best practices for considering privacy when shooting behind the scenes content or sharing customers' love stories or anything about your customers themselves?
You
We
always want consent. Always want consent. Um, it's never appropriate to shoot customers without their consent or even to use their content that they've posted on social without their consent as well. With consent is great because that reciprocity again, just, feeds the algorithm and helps you as a brand owner. But you always want to be mindful. And I mean, especially here in LA, like, I work with jewelers in Beverly Hills, and sometimes we get some, very, A-lister type people who like just do not want even a picture of their ring shared. So even if we're doing a bespoke, a custom piece of jewelry, and oh my gosh, would we kill to show how the guys at the bench are making this enormous ring, without that client's consent, we can't do it.
So we actually thought about this as well, because this was a problem for us being such a small jeweler, and like the artistry of some of the things we make. We really wanted to be able to do this. So we did some research, and so how we have it is we have a 90-day on the back of all of our receipts that the client signs. And so you have 90 days from the day you pick up your ring, and then we will start showing your ring on social media. We will never say who the ring belongs to or anything like that, but we have a 90-day just because, it is our work and we do want to show it. So that way, it's out there. And there have been times where we have waited longer, where it has been communicated, and that's like a respect thing too. Like, if a client is asking and they're like, hey, look, here's the day, here's the trip, we'll respect that. But I do think, what the effort our CAD designers put into some of these pieces, for them to never make it to light would be, and also just for our brand, for them to never be seen, it would be like such a shame.
That's a great point. Not sure if you guys have much experience in this situation, but somebody is asking about the best way to find influencers that can align with your brand values and your identity to generate the desired outcome.
I mean, we work with a lot of influencers. It's a lot of work to work with them. But yeah, I mean, it depends on whether they're, if they're a brick and mortar in a small town, then it's, aligning yourself with influencers there. When it comes to, aligning yourself with brand values, that is so important. I'll just give you an example. Right now, we're doing a big campaign for a children's book with influencers, and we're very specific that, the book is about kindness, and that we want to just make sure that the people that influencers, that parenting influencers that we're aligning ourselves with, are across the board. Just, their messaging is kindness too, and not, on one extreme or the other, or have been disparaging, because believe it or not, there's influencers of all different types, and they exist for a reason. But it is very, very important that you vet. And when you're vetting an influencer, that you want to make sure aligns with your brand values, that you are combing all of their social platforms to make sure that there isn't something in there that could tarnish your brand, by making that connection and utilizing them to amplify your brand voice.
But haven't heard from him yet, but I have.
Great. Okay. So somebody says that they have been getting a lot of messages and tags from one person in particular. How do you set boundaries for customers who contact you 24/7?
You can't. I mean, we have certain customers who do that. If it's somebody who asks like for the price of a ring 3 times a week, I will get shorter with them over time, as like I kind of like know them and know they're going to do that. I'll just send them a link. You don't really have to say anything else. So make it less salesy, because I know they're not actually interested, but I'll still do what they ask. But sometimes you just have to tolerate that people are going to behave like people.
Yeah, we kind of take gratitude and boundaries, and think that that kind of equals out to like a graceful way of answering those people. So we really just try to be as thankful, like thank you so much, like we're so excited to have you and to be working on this piece for you, and then still establishing the boundary, but hey, like the due date is this date, or hey, this is like what it's going to be, and being firm.
You guys must deal with a lot in the comments and in your DMs, it sounds like. All right, I think we have time for one more question. So how do you handle a situation where you've posted something accidentally with misinformation? So it has the wrong gemstone weight, wrong metal type, whatever it may be. How do you go about correcting that if you've put that misinformation out there by accident?
I will have a word. I will definitely have a
What I would do would just be to go in the, if it's on Instagram, like TikTok, you can't edit the captions. On Instagram, you can. I would edit the captions. If somebody mentions it in the comments, just say like, you're right, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. This is what it is. Just be very honest. And if if it's something prominent and you feel like it's helpful to post an additional post about it, sometimes that's not a bad idea. And again, our most viral post ever came from people trolling me because I said a diamond was 100 years old. So, I mean, being trolled isn't the end of the world.
Yeah, I think again, it just makes you, going back to that being human, and it's okay. Like we all make mistakes. So I think just, owning up to it and just going, oopsie, we made that mistake. I mean, I've gotten huge, from huge brands like, J. Crew, who've accidentally, sent the wrong email out, and then the subject line, it's like, oops, wrong email. And if everybody makes a mistake, and it's okay, just own up to it, and people appreciate that.
Yeah, I think just issue a correction. Like, like it's okay, correct it as soon as you see it. And then if anybody points it out, like I said before, I think it's most of the time people just want to feel seen. So even sometimes it's just being like, oh, thank you for pointing that out. Even that is just like somebody's like, oh, they responded. So it just makes people feel good. It builds that trust again, and that is very important.
For sure. Lauren, do you have any last thoughts?
No, that was great. I think we covered so much ground. I'm so appreciative of all of your perspectives and for taking time out of your day to be here. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you once again to our sponsor, GIA. We will return with my next question, the last one of the year. And that will be on December 16th at 2 p.m. And it is about a 2025 looking back on an eventful year. And that will feature some of our JA staff as well as National Jewelers staff. So thank you again for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you.
Bye. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.